I am now at the edge of Mono Lake, and I thought it was pronounced Mono Lake, and I called it Mono Lake for a long time, but then found out you pronounce it Mono, and that makes sense because I thought mono was an infectious disease. I've never had mono in my life, but Wendy had had mono, and I think she says it's not fun, and she often will get it every year, although she's been able to escape getting infected the last few years or so. So it's not Mono Lake, it's Mono Lake. And to give us a sense of our surroundings, we're in the Great Basin, and as you can see, the basin ends at the base of the Sierra Nevada mountain, and this is actually Yosemite right here at the top of the Sierra. So Mono Lake is right at the entrance to Yosemite on the eastern side. And what you might find interesting if you look at the geography from a big perspective, my brother Stephen, who loves Colorado, would be happy to know that the Rocky Mountains is the eastern range of the Great Basin Desert. And then the Sierra Nevada here is the western range. So between the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevada, you have the high desert, the Great Basin. And then when water flows, it's trapped between the two great mountain ranges and will collect in lakes like these. And the only way the water gets out is through evaporation. It doesn't drain into the sea. And typical of these lakes here, there's one in Utah similar to this, when the water evaporates, it leaves behind all the minerals it collects and forms. So it has a very high alkaline content, and hence the name in Utah, the Great Salt Lake, but also similar to here. Another similar lake is the Dead Sea, which very similar to this, that led Mark Twain to refer to Mono Lake as the Dead Sea of the United States. But as you'll see very shortly, that it's not an accurate comparison, because in contrast to the Dead Sea, where everything is really dead, this is actually an oasis that is flourishing with life, and it's a very important part of the ecosystem. Mono Lake is basically an oasis out here in the Great Basin. So if you look at the water, you see how bright green the water is. That's because it's just full of algae. There's so much algae there that it is a haven for shrimp. And all the shrimp there attract flies and attract migratory birds in this area. And one thing that's very interesting is that seagulls from the California coast will migrate here to lay eggs and to have their young here. So if you like cooing at Baby Yoda, and if you saw my previous video and you enjoy cooing at the baby volcano, you'll enjoy cooing at the baby seagull. However, the two islands in the lake are off limit until August 1st, when the breeding season is over. You can imagine how tough it might be to be a seagull, because the ocean is behind the Sierra Nevada, maybe 100 miles as the bird flies, maybe 150 miles, something like that. But not only do they have to fly all that way, they have to fly over the Sierra, and so the Sierra is about anywhere from 12 to 14,000 feet. Can you imagine seagulls flying that high all the way to come out here to nest and to breed? That's a really tough life. And unfortunately, this lake is only a shell of its former size. Where I'm standing was all underwater until about 1941. There's some advantages, even though it's a bad situation, by lowering the lake. you can walk on dry land where otherwise you would have to snorkel or scuba dive, and that's something I never do. I don't snorkel or scuba dive, so we get a real look at what it looks like now on dry land. And one of the things I've emerged that looks very weird is a formation called a tufa. Now, at first I thought tufa must refer to a hairstyle of the Oompa Loompas from Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. If you've never seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, see the first one, not the second one with Johnny Depp. The Oompa Loompas, very distinctive workers. They're really good songs. That was one of the 4 or 5 movies we've had growing up that we watched many times. So tufa is not Oompa Loompa hairstyle. Rather, tufa refers to these strange spires of rock that you see behind me here. And then as you scan around, you can see all of these weird rock formations here. And these are called tufa. These tufas are locations of what used to be springs under the lake. So when the water goes through the limestone, it accumulates chemicals like carbon and I think calcium. And then when it emerges at the bottom of the lake, it joins with the chemical in fresh water, which I think is carbon. So one calcium, one carbon, but they join together and create a calcium carbonate, which is a substance similar to limestone. And so over time, at the opening of the springs underwater, the water coming up and out of the ground will mingle with the fresh water and then solidify and then build up over time. Even with the lake drained as it is, you can still see just a little bit of a tufa just poking up from the water. It looks like floating rocks, but they're simply tufas. If you have a binocular, you can see them all throughout the lake. So that's the main attraction now at Model Lake, is to walk on dry land and to be able to see the tufas.